Robinhood. Welcome.
Thank you.
Perfect. Well, before we get started, I want to let everyone know too that if you have questions, just feel free to comment and it will show up on our side and we'll be able to answer them. Okay? So first things first, Bryce, tell us about yourself and about the game.
Sure. So just a little bit about me. One unusual thing about me, I grew up in Niger in Africa. And so I came to a point of my parents are Christian missionaries there. And so service has always been a very important part of our lives and helping the poor. And so I worked in the corporate world for 6 years. And then I was inspired by a passage in Exodus that talks about working the land for 6 years. And then at the 7th year, let it rest and be available for the poor. And so I took a year off, took a sabbatical and helped the homeless in the Madison area. And out of that, I started designing a board game called Rescuing Robin Hood. And so that was kind of the inspiration for, or kind of that time that was available for that. And people really liked it. And so it's a collaborative deck refinement game in which your villagers become stronger and stronger over time, and you build up your merry men to rescue other villagers and then to storm the castle and rescue Robin Hood. That's kind of the gist of the game and kind of how I got into game design.
I love it. I love it. I love how you spent that time off to do something that what felt right for you and also kind of create this thing that you brought out to the world too, kind of twofold, right? And I'm just going to get right down to one of the main things I personally want to ask you, which is I saw that your campaign was on Indiegogo and then, to crowdfund for, the artwork and then on Kickstarter for the actual game itself. Talk to us more about that. What kind of drove you to do that? What was your experience like with that?
So one of the challenges that I had was I wasn't necessarily super familiar with crowdfunding to begin with. And so one of the best ways to learn is to either start small and fail or start small and succeed. And so that was kind of what my goal was. I set a low goal of raising $2,500. And I mean, I figured if I couldn't raise that, then it was good to know that at that point kind of thing. And so then that's what I did. And it was to fund for the art. We had stickers and posters for it. Paul is a very gifted artist too. And so a lot of people were very passionate about doing that. So we had a product, and then we also were giving the Tabletopia version of the game. So it did help that we had something we were giving out as opposed to just give us money for fun.
Yeah. Okay. So basically you were saying that when it came to Indiegogo, when you were using that to crowdfund for the art itself, a lot of games use the artwork as an incentive to bring people in. So now you're saying, hey, get in on even more of the ground floor. And here are some other things that we can offer you inside of the game right now as we move to the next phase.
So there's collectible stickers that only the people who backed it on Indiegogo ever get. So that's pretty exciting.
Oh, okay. That's really cool. And for this, how did you start building a community then for Indiegogo, or how did you go about kind of marketing for your launch without just even the artwork for the game done yet? Because a lot of people, again, rely a lot on the artwork just to get people excited.
Yeah, we had a lot of concept art and some initial characters, and our plan was to create a total of 80 characters uniquely for the game, 80 different unique villagers, each with their own personalities and backstories and things like that. So from an art perspective, it was probably overly ambitious, but we did it. So that's good. So that was, we'd start with okay, we have 10 characters. Great, let's market let's tell everyone about those. And that's now we have 12 characters. Oh, great, we added new ones. And so every email that I sent out, I would send out, here's a new character with their art and their backstory. And each individual email has its own thing. So it kind of used the art that we had, even though we were only a quarter of the way through it. We still used that as we went forward to that. So,
got it. And how did you build up that initial email list that you kind of sending out to? Who are these people who are interested from the Indiegogo perspective too?
Mostly friends and family, people that just wanted to support the thing there. In retrospect, I think I would have built it up a little bit more with giveaways or something like that. just to kind of build the initial email list.
Got
And then
it.
the other thing we did was there was a lot of online board game conventions. And so we met with a lot of people playing the Rescuing Robin Hood there, and then people would join the email list that way.
Okay. Online conventions. Okay. Great way to meet people during these times for sure. And from crowdfunding on Indiegogo and then moving it to Kickstarter, what was that process like? Did you kind of keep a lot of people from Indiegogo and they backed you on Kickstarter? Or like how did that transition go? What was it
Very
like?
much so. I would say
Okay.
that the vast majority of people that backed us on Indiegogo also backed us on Kickstarter. Probably 80% or something like that.
Okay, and how was the communication like between, Indiegogo to Kickstarter? Were you like, hey, we're funded for the art now. Here's a few months where we're going to work on it, and now we're going to launch on Kickstarter. What was that like to kind of get people to be hyped about an upcoming Kickstarter too?
So just a lot. I think from there we just kind of transitioned to more generic Kickstarter excitement emails. Just like building this. Oh, look, we created this new thing. We're doing this. We improved the game in this way or that way. And those were kind of the key things that we would do along the way. And we had kind of our only X number of days until it launches and whatnot. And so that was kind of the thing there. As we approached the tail end of that period, we started creating things like Instagram posts that we would ask people to share. So we'd say like the week before, we'd be like, hey, we launch on this date. Can you share this on Monday or on Tuesday when we launch, kind of thing? And so that was kind of what we would do there. So
Okay, getting your own community to just share out to kind of expand the exposure pretty much for the game too.
Yes, maybe I'm unpacking a little bit, going on to your next question, or I don't know how continuing the story here, but one of the things that we found most effective was early on to ask from a Kickstarter perspective, hey, can you just share this on your social media feed and just share about this and not ask for them to back it, just ask for them to share. And then oftentimes people would be like, oh, I'll share it. No one's going to share something without looking at what it is first. So that's kind of a sneaky way of getting people to actually look at it and decide if they want to back it or not without actually asking. And then sometimes you'd have people that were uncomfortable sharing and they're like, I'm sorry, I can't share, but I backed you. And then you're just, oh, okay, no problem.
Yeah, so pretty much like two birds with one stone.
Correct. Yeah. And the key is to only ask for one thing. And the first thing is to ask that people share. And then later on, 2 weeks later, you're like, hey, can you actually back it now? And they've already shared. So that's easier to kind of push them along there. It's also particularly good for like married couples, because oftentimes if you are reaching out to someone, they have to maybe discuss it with their wife or husband first. And so they're not going to make that decision right away. But sharing on social media, they can just do that, and then that makes them more likely to start that conversation and then eventually make the sale.
Got it. So pretty much like getting them exposed to it once, so that they're kind of thinking about it, thinking about it, and then following up later and making that other second call to action, like pre-order now call to action anyway.
Right. And you'd be surprised, like quite a number of people would take the desired action of buying it too. So you didn't even necessarily have to ask, but sometimes you did, maybe about a 50-50 chance or something.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about like growing this group of people. Okay. So you had the initial Indiegogo where it was mostly like friends and family, you said, and then during the Indiegogo process, I assume that there was more just random strangers coming in. Am I right?
Yes, it was a lot of board game conferences. Online board game conferences were really big this year, and so I did a lot of play tests with Rescuing Robin Hood. I got play tested something like, I don't know, 140 times now or something like that.
140 times online. I love it. Okay. So was that? Yeah. Go ahead.
So it's intense. I mean, it's a lot, but it was good.
Yeah. So when you were playtesting, right before this was before the Kickstarter campaign launched, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So when you were playtesting, what kind of things helped when it came to at the end of the game, right? Where to get people to join you or join your email list or kind of click notify me on launch. Like, what did you do there?
So it kind of goes hand. So if you want to play test to be focused on feedback, it can be like, okay, what didn't you really like? What you felt like didn't really work, or that kind of thing, right? But if you just want them to sign up for the email list, you ask the question. So what did you really like about this game? Did you have fun? All positive questions that people are going to be. No, I hated the game. No, they're not going to say that. They're going to go, yeah, it was fun. I really liked this and this and this and this. Oh, okay, great. Do you want to sign up for the email list? So then you just ask the positive, because then they're just focused on the positive. And then you have the call to action of sign up to the email list, and just, could you just put your email in the chat here so that way I can see it, but no one else can, and then I'll just add it. And then the other thing is, you don't just say, here's the link to the email list. You say, hey, can you just send me your email on the chat now? And then there you're online with them. And like, they could decide not to, but they're literally face to face with you. Like, Nolan, if I said, hey, Nolan, could you just chat me your email now, so that I can add you to the email list? You could say no to me, but it's way easier to say no if I like email you the link and I'm like, hey, just sign up for this if you're interested. Like,
Got it. Yeah. So basically being like really clear on like your objectives before you even start that question process at the end of a playtest, right? Is the objective to like really get the feedback, or is the objective to get an email, and then asking the questions in a way that will get you to that objective, right? Whether it be like feedback for the game or whether it is getting an email from them. Okay. And then the second thing you mentioned was like, since they're online, just have them chat it right over, and you can manually add it. And then I'm guessing the response rate and success rate is very high for that for you.
yes, I would say something on the order of 3/4 to 2/3.
Wow.
If you gear the conversation towards getting an email, you can get 3/4 to 2/3.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So being really, really pointed of like what the objectives are for yourself to just to get to that goal, because I'm guessing you work backwards and you're like, okay, I need to grow an email list. I need to form this community before I launch. Got it. Okay. So what kind of other things were you doing to kind of get the word out about your game before your Kickstarter?
Yeah, I tried. So we had quite a large amount of social media presence. We had some in board game forums. I didn't have. I wouldn't say that was our most effective. I think they tend to be pretty saturated with lots of people posting a new Kickstarter link or this or that. So that's, I think, worth noting. There are exceptions there, but it seems like that's kind of a thing to note. And then another thing is that so we had some social media ad campaigns that were related to our pun competition. So our game features characters with puns. So for instance, there's a character called Aaliyah, and Aaliyah, her last name is Better Listen. So Aaliyah Better Listen. And then you have other characters. There's the winner of the pun competition was Sir Render.
Yeah.
There was just a lot of, and Waldo is a name in England at that time, and then Respect was his last name. So, War and Peace was a popular one too. So just like.
Got it. So you were having all these pun competitions online and getting the word out that way.
Yeah, so what we did first is we said, okay, here the universe, we're having a pun competition. Let us know. And that went just like viral. It was one of the most effective ads. I mean, we had like 15% of anyone who saw it liked it. I think it was, which is just astonishing for a social media ad.
Yeah.
And then we had like a lot of people reshared it. I think we had like 20 to 50 reshares of people being like, hey, so-and-so, hey, Nolan, you've got great puns, like, and share on your social media, just to like tag you that you should submit some puns to the pun competition. So it really struck home. I think it was at a time in which everyone was stressed with the pandemic, and it's just kind of like, lighthearted puns sound great, hooray! And so we built quite a lot of puns that way. And then we went on social media, and then we said, okay, we got 350 pun submissions, which is so many. And so we kind of like, we whittled those down to what are the top 48 puns. And then we had this thing where there was a tournament of you could vote, which of these 4 puns do you think should go to the next round? And which one, so then you had the different ones. And then we had, out of those top 48, we had one winner. And then we would give the winners posters and different things like that. So
Wow.
it was just, the content was high quality. We didn't have, our audience wasn't huge, but our content was high quality through the whole thing. So
yeah. So pretty much like finding a way to capture the essence of your game and include your audience into it too.
Exactly. Yeah. The more that you can kind of get your audience engaged with your art or your game. And sometimes, I mean, those decisions can be hard. Which of the puns is the best? Like, who am I to know? They're all funny to me, just like, but if you have like 20 people have voted, then you have more like data to go off of. So that was, I think, very helpful.
Got it. So that's like a lot of fun and excitement leading up to the campaign too, right?
Yes.
When you were getting close to the launch itself, what was marketing like? What were kind of the things that you were like, this is moving the needle, and you would kind of tell everyone to do in a way?
Direct messages on social media platforms.
Yeah.
There's no substitution for that. Just the raw, I message you, Nolan, I say, hey, can you share about rescuing Robin Hood on your social media feed? Like, if I'm not asking you and I just post on a forum, hey, can everyone share this on their social media feed? What are the odds? Like, there's no, there's no way that you're going to share, kind of thing. So that's, I think, very important. So there's no substitution for that.
I love that.
And the other thing is that early on, so Facebook also essentially, after you send 80 or so of them, then they're like, you might be spamming the world. We're going to slow you down. And there's not really a great way to like get off of that. So you have to just kind of have a regular pattern of every day sending out a certain number. The same for LinkedIn. LinkedIn was I would say Facebook direct message, followed by LinkedIn direct message, followed by Instagram direct message. That's what I would say.
Wow, yeah. I've actually never heard people really mention LinkedIn before as like a
marketing
tool for that. Tell us more about that.
So what I did is I reached out to my fellow alumni of Wheaton College, and I would target people that were in a certain age group. So they were young professionals, and that, had been out of college for a couple of years. And I would say, hey, I'm Bryce. I love connecting with other Wheaton alumni. If that works with your networking philosophy, if you happen to like board games, let me know. And that was my, that LinkedIn, just connect with me on LinkedIn. That was my generic message to, hey, and then like a lot of people, like 1 out of 10 would be like, I love board games. I don't know what you're talking about, just like randomly. And then you're like, great, can you send me your email? And then I'll sign you up to the list. And like, that would be like, so now I have like, I don't know, 1,600 LinkedIn connections or something like that from this whole process.
I love it.
So I guess that builds up my professional network for all the whatever benefit that has. I have lots of that now.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So like the direct messaging on LinkedIn, you mentioned on Facebook and also on Instagram.
Yes. But LinkedIn, you've just built that initial connection with people. So what I would say is that should probably start prior to your Kickstarter campaign, like a couple of months, because why not build up your audience in that thing? And then in retrospect, I honestly probably would have posted more on LinkedIn than I did on Instagram, because I think that would have been more effective. My personal LinkedIn, that is.
Got it. And
But
from all this, how did
so LinkedIn? No one posts on LinkedIn, which is kind of hilarious. And so the content, if someone likes, if you like my post on LinkedIn, it shares with all of your followers too. So it's kind of like TikTok that way, where it just can go viral, like get a lot of views pretty quickly.
Got it. Got it. So basically, like understanding the algorithm and also understanding the platform and how they work. And if you get someone to like something on like a platform like LinkedIn, you get that additional exposure too.
Exactly.
And with all this, right? There's, I assume, again, like you said, 1,600 people on LinkedIn. How are you managing these conversations? Was it like a spreadsheet on Excel where you were just putting everyone's names down? Like, how are you managing all these conversations?
I think it just was a volume of activity. It's just kind of like, I just need to message X number of people. Look, this is how many unread messages I have, and go for that. I can't say I was super systematic about it. Though Heidi, our marketing associate who was doing Instagram, she did a really good job of kind of organizing, okay, here's the people I've reached out to that I have meaningful conversations with on Instagram. And then she would reach out to people and be like, hey, remember how I shared this on our story about your Kickstarter? Well, now's our Kickstarter. Can you share this on your story? And then be like, okay, sure. Like people are pretty happy to share things on their story for Instagram, as long as you have like if your board game looks pretty, you have a beautiful photo, and then they just can like copy, paste, comment, this looks cool, done. Just like, why not share it on your story if it looks pretty and, like you're not actually committing to anything and it goes away in 24 hours kind of thing.
Got it.
So then at one point I reached out to a friend of someone else a friend reached out to a friend and said, hey, you should check this out. And he said, I've been seeing it everywhere on social media. Like all the board game people like it. So I have to check it out.
Yeah. Oh, so pretty much like kind of creating an echo chamber in a way of your campaign, kind of like being talked about everywhere for people too.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this yeah.
One of the things that was cool about the Instagram is when we reached out to reviewers and stuff, some of them were already followers of ours. And so then they were just kind of like, yeah, of course. Like we've been following your campaign. Your content's been great. Like they were excited and they had engaged with the content the whole time. So then for them to review it after that was like a no-brainer to them kind of thing.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. And with all these like this TMing and this like individual one-on-one conversations, what was it like transitioning from, kind of relationship building, talking, chatting, getting to know them? What was it like transitioning to like the in-campaign phase? Was it really just after those conversations when you launched, you went and said, hey, we're launched. Would you like to back us? Or like tell us more about how the conversation goes, because a lot of people, don't have that clarity.
Yeah. So honestly, I didn't do a whole lot of conversation building beforehand. So it would just be kind of like, here's who I am. Here's, let's say LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Do you like board games? Yes, I like board games. Great. Could you join? Do you want to join the email list? Yeah, here's my email. Throw them in the email list, and then be like, hey, we launched on Kickstarter. Back us now. And then people would oftentimes back you now, kind of thing. So it wasn't. I mean, that's not a deep relationship. But they said,
but it worked.
Yeah. So I think to me, numbers is so important. And getting like I'm such a relational guy. Like I like to like build relationships with all the people, but when you're trying to get 300 backers is just not really possible to have, to have those meaningful connections with people along the way, kind of thing. But reaching out to old friends also is worth a lot too. So people that you've already have a connection with that you maybe haven't talked with for 8 years, but you're like, hey, I have this thing, check it out, or back this, or do like share this on social media, or check this out, or, it's just kind of a reasonable, I haven't heard from you in a long time, but sure, I'll look at your thing, kind of thing. As long as you don't push that relationship too far, don't send them 5 messages to be like, back my Kickstarter, because probably that's not right for the relationship if they haven't responded to you on message number 2, kind of thing. So
got it. Yeah. So now that we're kind of in the campaign phase 2, what kind of things were you doing to continue to get the word out for the game?
For right now?
For during the campaign itself.
Oh, in the campaign. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of it, let's see, reaching out to different people that are key advocates or key different people so different people ran like podcast, they did live like Twitch event of me. There was a Twitch event of me or an interview or different things like that. What's interesting is once you hit live and once you go live on your campaign, there's a lot of people that just reach out to you organically and are like, hey, do you want to play the game on our Twitch thing or this or that? And maybe it's not that many, they don't have that many followers, but it's still, it's something kind of thing. So that would be just being open to having those conversations, doing that. That's kind of the high level of reaching out to people that you may not know at all. I did also a press release that was released. No newspapers picked it up, but then I emailed the medievalist who I've been connecting with and hanging out, like going back and forth with, and I was like, hey, we had this new press release thing, and they just copied and pasted my press release and put it on the medievalist, which is a big publication. So that was cool. That was pretty exciting.
Yeah, so basically having content prepared beforehand too.
Exactly. Yeah. A press release, I think, is worth having generally, because then you can, those people that are writing articles or different stuff, they can just be like, sure, copy, paste, done. It's really easy journalism as long as you wrote it well and it's compelling. And there's an art to that. There's things like, it feels weird, but when you're writing a press release, you should quote yourself. So and according to Nolan, this is a great, a really wonderful marketing program and campaign, and is wonderful for so you just quote yourself, kind of thing, in that, and it sounds a lot more compelling when you write it. And Bryce Brown says, we designed this to be a great game for the whole family, end quote. Versus if I actually just say it's a great game for the whole family without quotes, it's not as compelling, for instance.
Got it. So you kind of can get the message across with it in a compelling way by quoting it and putting it through a press release that way.
It's funny that it's that way, but it's just that's what happens.
Yeah. And so now that the campaign's, all wrapped up now, what's next for Rescuing Robin Hood, and what's next for you?
Yeah. So from a success perspective, we had been hoping to sell a little bit more copies generally, and because I had been hoping to maybe have this as kind of a full-time gig. But I see now that I'll be manufacturing it and then be transitioning it to more of a part-time thing, which is more traditional for the board game industry in general. So that's totally fine. So that's kind of where we are now. And then we're thinking about, okay, how can we get this into board game stores, or are we going to sell primarily online, or what, with kind of the copies that we will produce. So we'll probably produce about twice the number of copies that we sold on Kickstarter. And then that way we'll have plenty to sell to people that are excited about it. And then, I think it's got a lot of potential as a game. Like the consistency with which people really enjoyed the game was high. Like I am certainly like I really like my game, but there are much bigger fans of Rescuing Robin Hood than I am out there in the world today. So like people are like this is the cat's pajamas. Like this is the best. Like this one board game reviewer said this is like now one of his all-time favorite games. Like, so that's saying something. This is a guy who reviews board games like a ton of board games all the time. So that's huge. So as a game, as a product, I have very high confidence in it. Like it's just very solid. The consistency with which people enjoy it. It has a little bit for each person, but it's a really good family game. But having a phenomenal game is not enough to succeed in the board game industry. You have to get the word out. You have to have the right, the right connections or the right price, or just it's hard and it's competitive. Like the margins that the distributors or consolidators ask for are really, really low. And like some things you'll actually lose money on if you don't, depending on how you think. So figuring out all that stuff is exciting and good, and kind of challenging. So then we're kind of looking at that is kind of what the things I'm wrestling with now. And then but more importantly, it's just getting the word out about the phenomenal game to people, so that they can get a copy, and try it out, play it, and just have fun with it. And and connect with friends. And like the Tabletopia version right now, I've connected with another person, and he's like, yeah, I played it with my mom and my kid, and like all these people, we all had a blast playing online. It's like great, so that's just a lot of fun. So just kind of spreading the word is really where we are at now. So.
Love it. And if people want to grab a copy of Rescuing Robin Hood or find out more about the game, where should they go?
CastilloGames.com is the best place to go. So that's the name of the company, and that's CASTILLO games.
CastilloGames.com. Okay.
Yep. So.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being on the show here and just sharing all these insights. I'm sure a lot of people get a lot of this, a lot of knowledge from here, especially the one-on-one conversations that you were talking about, how effective that was, kind of the messages that you sent out to people. That is like you said, it's like one of the key things to do for the conversation. So thank you so much for being here and sharing all this knowledge.
You're so welcome. Thank you. Happy to be on the show.